Hey, welcome back to the Group Project Podcast. This is episode number 112. I'm here with Chris Deason, who is the high school principal at Ballard High School. Did I say, is that correct? Ballard High School?
You got it. That's correct.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, hey, how many days left with kids there? It's May 25th. We're recording this show. How many days left of school do you got?
So most people would say 2, but in education, you know how it is. We just call it 1.5 because we get out early on Friday. So we'll take that half day whenever we can get it.
Nice. Okay. And so you are finishing up your first year as the principal there, correct?
That is correct.
Oh gosh. Now, has it gone by fast? Has it been a slow year? How would you summarize that?
It's really gone by fast. It's one of those things where I think like several weeks ago, I remember saying to a few people, hey, we got 6 weeks left. I got plenty of time to plan this graduation, to do this, to do that. And then all of a sudden, like one day I woke up and I went, we only have 2 weeks of school left. And so it's crazy.
Yes.
It really is how fast it goes.
So I jumped the gun a little bit. I already divulged that this is your first year as principal there. Maybe let's back up a little bit. Maybe just share, your progression, your path to the principal position. Like I said, just your experience and background.
Sure. So originally started working on my undergrad, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be a business major. I'm going to be an economics major, marketing, sales.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't settle into anything that made me happy until I kept going back to my old high school, working camps in the summer and doing stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I need to be in education. And as soon as I made that decision, everything just kind of fell into place for me. Got my undergrad at Northwest Missouri State in Maryville, Missouri. And then I taught and coached at my old high school, which was North Polk High School in Alleman, Iowa, which is basically 15 miles north of Des Moines. It's centrally located. Taught there, coached everything. Wound up being the activities director for a couple years, and then had an opportunity to move up the road to actually our arch rival, which is Ballard High School. Again, probably about 20 miles north of Des Moines, about 10 miles straight south of Ames, and had an opportunity to move up there, teach social studies, and become the head basketball coach. Replaced an absolute legend in Larry Schaefer, who's an Iowa High School Hall of Famer, and then proceeded to coach basketball here for 20 years and teach history. And, and kind of in my last few years of coaching, it's kind of one of those things where, you kind of think, gosh, I think I want to get into administration someday. Well, I'm coming back from a basketball camp one summer, driving home, and my principal calls me and he says, hey, how do you feel about moving up to the front office next year? He said, our assistant principal just resigned, and it's the end of July.
Oh, wow.
And so I came in, interviewed for the spot, got offered the position, and it was like dean of students, director of student services type of position. Moved up, and they let me keep coaching for a couple of years, and then I started working on my administrative degree. Eventually moved into, retired from basketball, moved into an assistant principal role. And then our principal, John Ronca, had been in the position for 20 years, retired this last year, and interviewed for the spot, was lucky enough to get it. And that's kind of my path.
Wow. Okay. A couple things there. Man, going from your arch rival, I didn't realize North Polk and Ballard, arch rivals.
Yep.
Did that take a little while to get over, or was that like not a big deal? Maybe kind of share a little bit of that.
It was a big deal, especially from the competition side of things, right? So the first time I coached against them, and I was born and raised in that community, went to high school there, went back and taught there and coached there. And, it was it was quite a deal. It was difficult, and I had a lot of friends down there, and they just could not believe. I still run into people I went to high school with, and they're like, I cannot believe you went to Ballard. And I'm like, it's so strange because we're literally 5 miles apart.
Wow.
And the schools are so similar. Like everybody thinks, oh, we're not like them, or we're not. They're just great people, great schools, solid traditions and everything. Just it's just a great place to be. And so you could be at either one, and things would be really, really good. I just have really enjoyed it here, and it's just such a cool community.
Huh. I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit. Has anybody from North Polk tried to kind of reel you back to North Polk at all? Or is that, you can share much as little as you want. If you don't want to, I get that too.
Not, they had an opening. They've had some openings over the years, and you have people will have side conversations with you, but nothing major. No, it's ironic that, we actually have had we have 2 or 3 people that I taught and coached when I was at North Polk that have actually taken jobs here working for us. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I love having them here. And my assistant principal that I hired last year, I hired from North Polk. He was a instructional coach down there. And so that was a big get for us. He's a rock star.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So you're just finishing up your first year. I love hearing these reflections as you look back on your first year. Large majority of the listeners are educational leaders, whether they're assistant principals, superintendents, aspiring administrators. Glean your knowledge on us. Like, as you look back on this first year, what are the biggest takeaways? What are the biggest learning moments that you've had?
Sure. I think like the thing that sticks out to me the most is probably communication. Once you've been through something, once you go through and have an experience, you deal with an issue, whatever. I always try and make notes and communicate to myself as well for future reference. But I think one of the other things I've learned, and I kind of always knew this, but this year really, really solidified it in my mind, is that making phone calls is underrated. Like most people in today's age, they just want to shoot a text message, shoot an email. Nothing takes the place of meeting with someone face to face, or just calling them on the phone, and you can find that something may seem tense, or something may seem like there's a lot there, and you call them and talk to them on the phone, and you realize there's really not that much there. They were maybe inquiring, or they just want, I was just wondering how you felt about that. And it's so nice to talk to people, and especially, during COVID, we got completely away from face-to-face stuff. And so it's so nice to be able to bring people into the office and sit down and talk to them. The other thing that I think I've learned, that, it's just one of the things that it's just my style, I guess you would say, but servant leadership. I just love to serve our students and our staff and our parents, and find out what their needs are. And if you can serve them and help them, like, it just, all the other things kind of just fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a couple things that I think stick out to me.
Okay. So communication, servant leadership, anything else that's, going from the assistant principal role to the principal role. I mean, you've been there for a long time. Maybe you knew what to expect, but a lot of assistant principals I speak with, they're like, "Ooh, I don't know if I'm ready for to be the person, the main person." Any other things that the biggest change from assistant principal to principal that you felt this year?
I was really fortunate working. I mean, so the nature of the beast of the system principal is high turnover, right? I mean, everybody wants to get the principal job. I was the assistant for 7 years.
Mhm.
And that's the longest anybody's ever been the assistant at this school in the history of the school. That's crazy to think about. I think the longest prior to that was like 4. And so I was really fortunate to work with John. John Ronca was our principal, because our offices, you can see the door behind me there, that they actually adjoin. And we would have that door open all the time and just talking. And he would let me be involved in everything. And so that was really nice as far as being prepared. But the part that's difficult to prepare for is the mental part. So I kind of liken it to going from being an assistant coach to a head coach, in that, the mental strain obviously ramps up a little bit. Like now, you're responsible for all 540 people in your building and 40 staff members, as to where before you're just supporting your principal and supporting all those staff and students. Now, if something goes sideways, like, ultimately you're it. So that's the thing that's probably the biggest difference, even though I only moved like 20 feet, it's that responsibility level.
Yeah. No, you're number 112, and nobody's ever quite said it that way. I love how you said that, like that mental strain, like suddenly, you're it. You're the person in charge of all those students, all those staff members. So I've had that same feeling before. Each step up, I feel like, oh my gosh, if you think about it too much, it gets a little overwhelming, and try not to think about it that way.
Right.
My next question is, what does a normal day look like for you? Every principal kind of has their own little system, their little things they like to do during the day. What does a normal day look like for you?
Well, the first thing is, my day starts generally with making coffee for our staff. You can't operate in this field without caffeine, right? So every day, come in, make a couple big pumper pots full of coffee, and then I love to kind of hang out in that area and in the hallway and greet our staff as they come in, and talk to them a little bit over some coffee. And then I love to be in the hallway and greet our students as they come in, and tell them hello and call them by name. And, I just think that's important. And then after our 8:00 bell rings and I head back this way towards my office, I'll check my calendar, kind of see what kind of meetings I've got slated for the day. One of the things my assistant principal is really good at is kind of putting on the schedule every week when we're going to do our walkthroughs and when we're going to get in the classroom. Because as you know, like, if you don't build that in, you can easily fill your day with whatever. So we'll try and build that in so that we're walking through classrooms at least once a week. And there's some weeks you don't get to it, but you really try to. And then lunchtime, we have lunch supervision, so you're usually out there for an hour and a half. And I love to. I've done this ever since I've been in education. Eat in the lunchroom with our students. And I think a good chunk of our staff does as well. And I think that's really important for the culture of your building and what you're trying to do. And and then and so much of education is handling issues that just pop up, like you don't know what's going to walk in the door, right? So you sprinkle a little bit of that in there, and then there's usually some kind of after school meeting. I'm on several different district leadership teams, and then our instructional leadership team, and whatever things we might be trying to work through, and then evening supervisions, home events, all that kind of stuff. So it's usually a pretty full day.
One thing you mentioned there is the after school supervision. A lot of people I talk to, especially in like I currently work in a school district with one high school. We've got one assistant principal at the high school. It intimidates people in terms of all the nighttime supervision as a high school principal. What can you share with people? Is that an accurate statement? Is that a big commitment? Is there ways around that? Have you figured out something that could help out? Just share your thoughts on that nighttime supervision, being a high school administrator.
So our activities director, Nate Boak, he does a great job of putting together a schedule. And he's got, what we've done is, fortunately, our district has allowed for us to hire a couple of site supervisors. So then we take them and we put them in a rotation with the principal, the assistant principal, the middle school principal, the assistant middle school principal, the AD, and then our site supervisors. And so we're able to rotate that through, and that's super helpful because, I'm not, or our assistant principal's not, or our AD's not at the school every single night. And that's great because, I mean, when I interviewed for the assistant position, they asked me if I wanted to be the AD also, because that position was opening up. And I said, and I had done that job at my previous school. And I said, no. And I said, as a matter of fact, I won't be interested in the job if I have to do both, because that job is crazy busy. The number of days you're, and that you've been through all that, but yeah, so hiring those site supervisors and then rotating all that supervision through, I'm looking at like, maybe like the fall season, like supervising 10 events, winter season, a little busier, maybe a dozen. Spring, by the time you work all the track meets and everything and have all the concerts, you're maybe around 10 again. So and then I'll have a handful. I think I have 5 or 6 this summer. So it's not, there are ways you can make it so it's not intimidating. Yeah.
I love that. Again, anybody who's out there, I've just seen too many high school administrators, try to say, oh, we can handle it. Me and the AD and the AP, we can handle it without really distributing those around. I love how you said you just kind of figure out a rotation. You add a couple site coordinators into the mix, and it makes so much sense. It just prevents burnout, which I've seen with way too many high school administrators, I feel like. Hey, what you mentioned, the tradition in Ballard, like there is a lot, those of us here in Iowa know, like Ballard has got a very strong tradition. What is Ballard High School known for? What maybe has been your focus since you've been there? I know you've just been there for the year, but what has been the focus there?
Well, I think, first of all, our kind of what we're known for is we're a high achieving academic school. We are really well known for activities, fine arts, athletics, like really well balanced, like it's one of those things that's kind of cool when you travel around the state or you talk to people and they say, oh, where are you from? And you say, oh, I'm from Ballard. They're like, oh, they have a good, fill in the blank program. And their jazz band's really good. Oh, their marching band, I saw them last year. They were really good. Or, their wrestling, they're really good, really solid, just whatever it might be. And that's something that I was really fortunate, like all of my predecessors, like I mentioned, like our former men's basketball coach is a Hall of Famer, our former women's basketball coach is a Hall of Famer. I would say in the academic realm, the principal that I followed, he's a Hall of Famer, we just have had so many great people here for so long. And so my focus has kind of been to kind of continue to try and foster that culture. We want to make subtle tweaks here and there. My goal, like I said, when I interviewed, the thing that I wanted to do the most this year was listen, and then listen some more, and then listen a little bit more after that. And then I said, we might make some subtle tweaks with like communication processes or whatever. But we kind of want to see, listen to everybody and kind of what's going on, and then continue that great reputation of academics, athletics, fine arts, continuing to be well-rounded.
A lot of people administrators who are in maybe districts who are not quite as high performing across the board would probably be like, oh man, I wish we had it as good as Ballard does. Is there any drawbacks at all that you see being a leader of a community that has high expectations?
I mean, you feel that pressure all the time. Like I'm sitting around we got some of our data back today from the ISASP testing, and which is our statewide testing, and you're like, I really want to. You kind of open it with one eye, you're like, oh, you want your kids to be successful, and you want your school to be successful. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of pressure there, and you feel that. But I think that, it's just like, if you're the coach of a really successful team and there's a little bit of a target on your back, like you'd much rather be in that spot than, trying to motivate your kids to try and to, so yeah, I think it's a good position to be in, but yeah, and it keeps you on your toes and keeps you working hard towards the goal. That's for sure.
Earlier, you mentioned like making the coffee in the mornings, the scheduling the walkthroughs, the eating lunch in the lunchroom. Mike, I always ask the question, what is one professional practice you use in your role you would recommend to others? So anything else on top of those that you've already shared?
I know I mentioned communication before, but I think communication and collaboration are two things that come to mind. When tough decisions need to be made, ultimately, yeah, the buck kind of stops with you, and you have to make decisions. But I'm big on, I'm going to reach out to, we have a great network of conference principals, all of our conference principals, we all have a group chat, and, we have a group email, and whenever something comes up, we meet regularly. I don't know if most conference principals do that, but we meet regularly, and we have an agenda of items that are going on, but in between, you're like, hey guys or gals, this popped up this week. Have any of you ever experienced this? How have you handled it? And then, it's just great to get their feedback. And then, I'll reach out to our superintendent. I'll reach out to our AD. I'll reach out to my assistant. I'll reach out to colleagues I know, and trust, and just try and get as much information as I can, just really collaborate with a bunch of people, and then make the best informed decision that I can. And then just communication, I think that, I try to err on the side of almost over communicating. I mean, something I may send to all of our staff, some of them may go, oh, that really doesn't pertain to me, but a lot of times you'll find out that if you don't do that, you'll be like, oh, I forgot to let our lead custodian know that so-and-so is going to be in the building tonight, or something like that. And so just try and really, really do that. And I'm big on wherever I'm at, wherever something's going on, like I'll take out my phone and just jot notes down. Heck, I think laying in bed the other night, I couldn't sleep, and I just got out my notepad on my phone, and I think I pretty much wrote the commencement speech at that time, just little things like that, getting those things down on paper. And I don't know if this helps everyone, or on my phone or whatever, takes away, then it takes away the stress that I feel about having to do that. Even if it's just jotting down a quick outline. And then what I'm able to do is I'm able to actually then relax a little bit. So I think that's helpful.
Oh man, everything you're saying, I'm taking some notes here. I completely agree with that. Like getting those thoughts that are kind of bouncing around your head, just getting them out on paper or getting them out on my phone just takes away some of that stress. I do the same thing in the middle of the night. If I can't sleep, I'm writing down some notes so I don't forget those things in the morning. Love it. Hey, if you're joining us late, I'm with Chris Deason, who's the Ballard High School principal in Ballard, Iowa, just north of Des Moines. Hey, okay, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here and we're going to do some kind of more quick hitters. So if people are visiting Ballard, and I know Ballard's not huge, but it's, it's right there up between Ames and Des Moines. We talked about before the show. Where's one place you got to check out if you're visiting Ballard?
So we are actually a community of 4 small towns, Huxley, Slater, Cambridge, and Kelly. And the school is actually named after a creek that runs through all the communities called Ballard Creek.
Okay.
So that's kind of a cool thing. Not a lot of people know about our area. I think 2 things that come to mind right away. One would be the 4th of July parade in Slater. Slater, that's just legendary. Like that's for a town of 1,500, 2,000. That is one of the people come from all over to come to that parade. It's legendary. Also, in our communities, we have a barbecue place that is off the charts, called B Fab's Barbecue, stands for Be Fabulous. Place is amazing. But other than that, like the school is the hub of the communities. And where are most people going to be? If there's an event going on at the school, that's where they're going to be. A baseball game in Slater, or a softball game in Huxley, or during the summer, or a basketball game, or a football game, or a band concert, or, if there's something going on at the school, people are going to be there.
So I'm trying to find real quick where that barbecue place is at. What town is that in?
It's in Slater.
It's in, okay. Not very cool. Very cool. Hey, I always ask the book question. What is one book that has greatly influenced your life?
So a few years back, I read a book by Todd Gongwer called Lead for God's Sake. And that book completely changed the way I taught and coached at the time, and has had a huge influence on how I operate as a building leader. It really helped me to be a servant leader and to look what others are doing. But it makes you ask the question, like when something kind of goes wrong, and you look at it from the outside, like most people would say, like, well, why did they do that? But really forces you to focus on positive intent. And it's like, okay, they probably didn't mean for it to go like that. And so it really challenges you to assume positive intent in people. And that's one of the things, like, whenever we have district leadership meetings, that's one of the first conversations we have is, when we put our norms up, when we get ready to have our meeting, is assume positive intent. Like, people, everybody's kind of trying to achieve the same thing and have success. And so many times today, people want to assume negative intent. They're like, you make a decision, something happens and it doesn't look good. And they're like, well, why would you sabotage this? Or why would you make this decision? Well, if they come in and you talk about it, they're like, oh, I see. Oh, so it just didn't go the way you wanted it to go. Well, no, it didn't. My intent was for this to happen. But if you just assume positive intent when people do things, it just makes things go so much sooner, and it keeps you from forming those ideas or those negative thoughts about people and things. So,
yeah, I love assume positive intent, and I'm looking at, so it's Lead for God's Sake by Todd Gongwer. Is that right? Okay. Yep. Yeah, it's and it's got a forward by Lou Holtz endorsed it. Yes. Urban Meyer forward. I mean, all kinds of like coaching. It sounds like there's some coaching references in there.
Yep.
Very, very cool. Next question is, if you could attend one musical concert, what would it be?
Ooh, I'm a big country guy.
Okay. Okay.
Love country music. I've seen Old Dominion 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Kenny Chesney, that kind of thing. But I think like today would probably be maybe like I'm going to put a handful of people together in one concert, if that's all right.
Okay. Okay. It's yeah.
Morgan Wallen, maybe some Parker McCollum, Zach Bryan. I don't know if you know Zach Bryan. Zach Bryan's one of those guys that's not on. Well, he just got on mainstream radio. He's kind of a legend in Texas country. And then maybe cap it off with Jimmy Buffett. I'm a big Jimmy Buffett.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Jimmy Buffett.
Okay. Yeah. I'm looking up Zach Bryan right now. Yeah. He's kind of an up and comer, it looks like. Hey, Old Dominion. Were you at that concert at the stadium in Des Moines last? They played at the Principal Park last.
No. I missed that one. So I drove way up to Northwest Iowa a few years back to watch them, like a 3-hour drive to watch them perform at a county fair. That was kind of when they were doing the county fair thing still. And then I drove to St. Louis and watched them open for Kenny Chesney a couple summers ago at Busch Stadium. So I've seen them a couple times, but they're good, real good.
And then have you been to it? I've never been to a Jimmy Buffett concert. Have you been to one?
I have not.
Okay.
So
I've heard
that's one of the reasons why I had to put that on my list.
Yeah. That sounds like one of those Summerfest type things you're putting together. I think you could be a great promoter, man. That's a great mix of bands there. That's great. Okay. So, hey, what's there in Huxley? Is there Casey's? Is that kind of what?
We actually have 2 Casey's stores in Huxley and 1 in Slater.
Okay.
3 in our community.
Okay. So if you are driving up to see Old Dominion in Northwest Iowa and you're starving and you need something to eat, you go into Casey's, like, what are you grabbing, Chris?
Well, it depends on the time of day, but if I'm if I'm driving somewhere at night or first thing in the morning, I'm probably going to get coffee. Secondly, ice, like the ice drink. I don't know if you've seen those, like they're carbonated drink. You can get them caffeinated or uncaffeinated. Yeah. Those are my new go-to. Used to be Arnold Palmer, but I've kind of made the switch. Arnold Palmer's got a lot of sugar, so, and then some kind of protein bar. Probably going with some kind of protein bar.
Oh, well, let's try to, hey, I love protein bars, man. So let's get a little bit more specific. What do you have one in mind? I mean, there's all kinds of options. Usually there's probably like 20 options at Casey's, but is there one you kind of gravitate towards? I don't, other than flavor.
I absolutely love peanut butter, and whenever I can get it. So if it's got peanut butter in it, I'm probably getting it.
Oh man, that's great. And then let's back up to coffee real quick. So Casey's has got the new like blenders, right? You touch screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, what kind of coffee are you getting? Just the Casey's original, or are you getting like the hazelnut or?
Occasionally, but normally, like in the morning, I'm going regular. In the evenings, I'm probably doing some type of half calf, just enough to keep me awake wherever I'm driving to.
Okay. This next question I'm really curious about, because you talked about this progression within the district there. Mm-hmm. But the question is, can you recall a job you applied for but did not get?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are you willing to share?
Yeah, of course. So, and this would have been February of 2020. I'd been in my position as an assistant principal for a while. At the time, there's 2 things that go into, I really wanted to be the principal here. That was my number 1 choice. But I wasn't sure how long my principal at the time was going to stay on. He wasn't sure. So he was kind of going back, I might retire next year. I might be a couple years. I don't know, insurance. I got things to think about.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay. And it wasn't one of those things where I was like looking. But a job came open at a school 30 miles from here that has a tremendous reputation. Little bit smaller school, but and I was like, I applied. And I honestly, I applied for, I think, 2 jobs total outside of this one.
Yep.
And one of them I didn't even get an interview for. So I was like, I probably won't get an interview for this one either, but I'll kick myself if I don't try, because it's such a great district.
Yep.
Well, I got a call, got an interview. Craziest interview process I've ever been through. It literally lasted all day. I got up there in the morning and I got home at like 8:00 at night.
Oh, geez.
It was, but it was amazing. Like, you would have never, like, not once did I think to myself, oh my gosh, this is taking forever. It literally was just constantly doing stuff. I brought my wife along. They had 3 or 4 parts of the interview where she took part.
Wow.
She went with the superintendent's wife. They went out for coffee. They toured. We both got in a vehicle and toured the communities, and they pointed everything out to us. They had an open house with all the staff in the library, where they had like punch and cookies and stuff. And we got to actually meet face to face, every staff member, my wife and I. And then there were individual parts, where I interviewed with the administrative team. I interviewed with a student team. I interviewed with a community team, which was board members and community members. And, it was just kind of all these different things. And I had really prepared. They had given me the list of people involved. I had looked up every single person on every single interview committee, all their social medias. Wow. I had all these detailed notes. I knew every activity that every one of these kids was involved in.
Jeez.
And what they did. And I would mention, like, and it was maybe a little bit overkill. But I wanted to know about them.
Yeah.
And so I got done with the interview, this whole process, and my wife had left earlier, so she was already back home. And I called her after I got done. I was driving home, and she said, well, how did things wrap up? And I said, well, I think we're going to have a decision to make. She goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, I think they're going to offer me the job. Like, I've never had an interview go that well.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, you're kidding me. I said, no. I said, I just really felt good about it. Well, days go by and I never got the call. Ended up getting a call that said, hey, we offered the job to someone else. They've accepted it, and I was like, I was a little bit like, okay, but I'm thinking to myself, I have a great job, and so I waited about, I don't know if it was a week, probably wasn't that long. And I reached out to the superintendent and I said, hey, just wanted to touch base with you. I really appreciate the opportunity to interview.
Yeah.
What can you tell me? And you don't have to answer me right now. Like, if you need to put some time into this, what can you tell me about what I can do better going forward? What do I need to work on? What was the difference maker? And he did. He got back to me with an email, detailed out a list of things that I needed to work on. And that was extremely helpful because, in education, we just having that growth mindset, you just want to get better all the time. You want to improve. And I took that stuff and I went to work on it. And I think that made a big difference. Yeah. I could speak to, PLCs, and I could speak to, these different leadership teams, and I could speak to maybe a little bit of standards reference grading, but I hadn't experienced it and I hadn't dug into it and done the detailed work that I needed to. And that's what I learned from that.
So do you feel like, then what, a year later, then this job pops open?
Right.
So you feel like it was kind of a block? I don't know. What are you thankful you didn't get it, or are you kind of,
sure.
What would you? Yeah,
for sure. I think, you do, everything happens for a reason. And I think that experience up there enabled me to better prepare and perform in my current role as an assistant when I was still the assistant. I think it made me better for that. And it made me better prepared for the job I have now and interviewing for it and all that stuff. And I'm fortunate to have some great some great mentors. I don't know, you know who Jimmy Casas is. Jimmy was the principal at Bettendorf and has written a book called Culturize and speaks around the country right now. Jimmy's amazing. I'm fortunate to call him a friend and reached out to him and said, hey, I'm interviewing for this job. And he gave me some just solid advice, because as an internal candidate interviewing for a principal job, it's different. It's different. And he told me what to expect and how to approach it and all that stuff. And that kind of stuff is just priceless.
I'm really curious. Can you share the best tip you got from Jimmy on being an internal candidate? Can you remember what?
The thing he said that resonated with me the most, he's like, two things. He said, you have to prepare like you're an external candidate. Do all of the detailed work, and so I did the same thing I did when I prepared for the other job. I researched all the committee members. I found out information about them. I dug around and found out stuff about, it's hard because I've been here so long. I feel like I know a lot about our district, but I dug in and found some statistical information about our district that I didn't know. And so that was good. And then the other thing he said that really hit me is he said, now, if you don't get the job, you have to go back to work in your current role, and you have to work harder than you've ever worked. And you have to not say anything bad about the person they hired. You have to be open to working with them. You have to say nothing bad, negative about the district. You just dive back in, you work extremely hard, and you do such a good job that you want them to say to themselves, oh, maybe we should have hired that guy. He said that has to be your attitude as opposed to sulking and feeling sorry for yourself and all that kind of thing. So just, he's a top-notch guy. And that just, and you kind of know those things and you say them to yourself, but to hear someone else say,
absolutely,
no, you have to do that.
Absolutely.
That's a huge deal.
Good stuff. Hey, I always ask the productivity question earlier. I love how you dropped that idea about just writing down those thoughts so they don't escape your mind about things you need to do. Any one other great productivity tip that you could share with us?
So these are kind of three things that I always share with, whether it's our staff or our students. They're part of my commencement speech this Sunday. I'll share them then. The three things I always talk about are show up, be on time, do what you say you're going to do. And they're, I'll never forget when I left for college, my high school guidance counselor said, hey, I got a tip for you. I was like, okay, and I'm like leaning in, and he says, go to class. And I go, well, yeah, I'm going to college. Like, I'm going to go. And he goes, no, go to class. He goes, no one's going to care if you don't. And so I'm like, okay, show up. You got to show up. Most people don't show up. Well, be on time. That's the other one. And be on time doesn't mean be on time. It means be 15 minutes early, And so that's a big thing that I always talk about. And then do what you say you're going to do, be a person of your word, follow through, be organized and care. You just, if you care about what you're doing, you care about people, you care about kids, like you're going to be really productive. If you're thinking about, if you're putting students first all the time, you're going to be really productive.
So you seem like a goal-oriented person. What is one big goal you're currently working on?
Have two things going on. We're in our third year of a 5-year rollout, switching our grading system to SRG, standards reference grading. So that's, you have some goal work there. That can be tough, and you're trying to get buy-in, and you're trying to, we're in the so the middle school's going fully on board next year, and then we're the year after that. So we're in the communication phase and setting up all that stuff for students, for parents, for our community. And then probably we've spent the entire year doing a schedule study. we're looking at possibly changing our bell schedule, our daily schedule in our building. And that can be challenging as well. You know, a lot of people don't want to change just because they don't like change.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't want to change because they think what we do is best for kids. And,
Sure.
you know, so we're trying to just take a look at, are there some other things out there that might be better?
What's your current bell structure? And then what are you potentially looking at?
So our current bell structure is a 7-period day, with an advisor / MTSS time built in between second and third period. And then what we've looked at are, an 8-period day. We've looked at an alternating block. We've looked at a trimester. And then we also looked at, this one's kind of unique. We looked at an Iowa City High does this. I don't think they're doing it next year, but they do a 7-period schedule, but all their electives are on trimesters. So that you can actually take more electives. So it's interesting. Really interesting.
Okay. Hey man, that's the end of my questions. You just all kinds of great knowledge that you dropped with us there, like just some things that really resonated with me. Is there anything else we didn't talk about that you'd like the audience to know?
You know, maybe just, and our football coach and I talk about this all the time, because he played at Wyoming, offensive lineman, signed as a free agent by the 49ers. Wow. And, you know, his wife was a first-team All-American volleyball player, set numerous records at Wyoming, like all this stuff. And he's like, you know, people don't understand that no matter how, like, all that stuff goes, and like, you're on this level or whatnot. He's like, man, I'm still like, I shovel my driveway in the winter and I take my kids to daycare and I still, like, so you have to operate. I think one of the things that's really important is operating every day just with a mindset that there's no job that's too small. You know, my assistant principal and I, we wipe the lunch tables down every day. Like, we pick up garbage in the hallway when we see it. Heck, the other day I washed my windows in my office and people are like, wow, why are you doing that? Why wouldn't you have the custodian do that? Well, they're busy people too. You know, I had 10 minutes after school and I just thought, I'm going to do that real quick, something they don't have to do. And, just that example is the kind of example that we want to set for our staff and our students every day, to have the culture that we want to have. So I just think, having that mindset of, you're just going to serve people and the best you can. And I think that's really important.
Love it. Hey, that's a great way to finish up this conversation. So, hey, Chris, I appreciate it, man. It was great connecting with you. Sounds like you're off to a great start to your first year as principal there. You got commencement this Sunday. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, how many seniors? I know the last couple of days, at least here, it's always like, okay, we might have this number or that number. But how many seniors are you looking at this year?
So this is as small a class as we've had in a long time. It's only like 110 kids. So, but yeah, we're excited and I think it's going to be a great day. So
I think we were right at 110 here at South Tama County. So we're about. Really? I think we had a 111 on Friday, and then maybe come Sunday we were like 109 or something like that. But yep, I hear you. So hey man, good luck with that. Sounds like you've got that speech all written in your phone there. It's all outlined, so you're good to go. But hey man, thanks so much. Have a good rest of the year, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.